Hello and welcome from Metropolitan Community College. Today we are kicking off Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. My name is Barbara Velasquez and I'm delighted to have you join us today to watch this important documentary with real historic information. Your microphones and chat with other audience members are turned off. Please send your questions to moderator Barbara Velasquez through the chat. You can send that at any time, and I will share your questions with our discussion leader at the end of the film. Also, watch for a link in the chat for an online evaluation. World history is never free of conflict. This film features lessons many learned in high school history classes. Yet today, I believe you will gain new information from a survivor of World War II's destruction in Hiroshima, Japan. The Vow from Hiroshima is an intimate portrait of Setsuko Thurlow, a passionate survivor of the atomic bomb in Hiroshima. She was 13 years old when the bomb was dropped in 1945. Her moving story is told through the lens of her growing friendship with the second-generation survivor, Mitchie Takeuchi. Setsuko was miraculously pulled out of a fiery building after the bomb was dropped and unable to save her other 27 classmates who were burned to death alive. That experience shaped her life forever. She endeavored to keep a pledge she made to her friends, that no one should ever again experience the same horrible fate. The film shows Setsuko through her decades of activism up to the current moment when she finally achieves her dream of a nuclear weapons ban treaty. Following the viewing, we have the honor of hearing from the producer of this documentary. During the viewing, please write down your questions that you will post in chat to moderator Barbara Velasquez for the question and answer session. Now let's watch The Vow from Hiroshima. Thank you so much to everyone for being here with us today to watch The Vow from Hiroshima. Normally I like to go through all the credits, but we do have limited time, so I will start while they run by introducing the esteemed producer, Mitchie Takeuchi, a Hiroshima native who's with us today. And please send your questions in through the chat to moderator Barbara Velasquez. As you saw, Ms. Mitchie Takeuchi on the video, she has for a long time been a resident of New York City. She's an entrepreneur, filmmaker, and activist. You also saw that her grandfather, survived the atomic bombing as the founding director of the Hiroshima Red Cross Hospital. With a goal to share what really happened beneath the mushroom cloud and inspire action for disarmament, Mitchie produced the film, The Vow from Hiroshima, interweaving the life story of atomic bomb survivor Setsuko Thurlow, intergenerational activism, and the success of the nuclear ban treaty resulting in a Nobel Peace Prize, which was accepted by Setsuko on behalf of the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. So please welcome Ms. Mitchie Takeuchi. And we'll start with questions. Welcome, Mitchie.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here with you. And I never been to Omaha, Nebraska, but I was trying to imagine where you are on your end. I'm sure it is a beautiful city, 500,000 people, right? It's a big city, but this is such a, this is my first showing at the place where I have never been. And I'm thanking for Zoom technology, of course, but I feel so honored to share the time with you. And also I did some, information gathering about the history of Omaha. It's a very significant city in so many ways. So this makes me particularly special to be connected with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's always a major honor to hear from a producer. And I want to say that I think everyone who's watching would agree that your production really wove culture, history. It talked about class structure. We talked about religious diversity with Buddhism, Christianity. I think for me, and I suspect many of our audience members, the next time we hear Nearer to Thee, My God, it is going to have a completely different memory, right? We know that war is full of horror, but we thank you for bringing the real life to this. I know when you and I talked, we discussed that governments make decisions, or maybe sometimes one person within a government makes a decision, and the people affected are often very innocent bystanders. I noted that we also looked at arranged marriage versus choice for marriage, and the long-term concerns for radiation and health issues that people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki would have held, and then just politics in general. And what a fitting time for us to be watching this as our world once again is hearing directly from leaders about the threats of nuclear warfare. So
yes.
I also was touched by how it was by chance that you met Setsuko.
Yes.
So I believe that people are always in the right place. Tell us, how it feels to have seen that first encounter develop into this, and at what point you knew a documentary needed to be created.
Thank you for the question. And I came into this movement at rather late stage in my life. I'm calling myself, I am in my third act, so to speak. And really everything happened. I came from Hiroshima. I come from the family of atomic bomb survivors and so on. Yet it was only, let's say, 10 years ago, I realized that my family background meant something. I didn't really know. So 10 years ago, because of this amazing destiny, I feel, it wasn't by accident, really, by destiny, I met Setsuko Soro in New York City at really random, nothing through the activism or anything. And we found out that we went to the same girls' school, which made us feel very close. And we found out we have some mutual family friends and so forth. But because of who she was, who she is, this committed, fearless, hardworking. She's by profession the social worker in Canada, actually, a great speaker, but also great listener. And by knowing her, I naturally realized that I need to do some research about my grandfather and my mother and need to share the story with everyone, with the world. And I really hesitated. I hesitated to be in the movement because I've been working in a corporate world. I've been pretty much like New York City, working, work-oriented woman. And suddenly I started to kind of make some shift, which was very uncomfortable for me at the beginning. And I really hesitated. to jump into this whole new world. But because I met Setsuko, because I met all these activists, right, in the UN and so on, they really changed me. I felt, oh my goodness, I come from the family of the actual stakeholders, victims, and I'm not doing anything. While all these people from all over the world who didn't come from the background like I did, and yet committing their lives to try to abolish nuclear weapons for everyone on this earth. I felt, gee, I have to really do something about this. So that was the beginning. And that led us to make the film because Setsuko was getting older. She's 90 years old now. And yes, she gets a lot of requests about lecturing and so on. And she is very vital person, so she wants to travel and so on. But one day she said to me and my friend, who ended up being a director, saying that, oh, traveling is getting so hard, and I really want to stay more in Toronto with my husband and write a book about our, family history. But I'm always running around all over the place. And so my friend Susan said, oh, maybe somebody ought to make a documentary so that the film can speak for you. She didn't think she would be making it. But because of all this destiny, we ended up making it because nobody else was, and so much is happening in the world and the UN and so on. Somebody have to capture this, capture this. So we started to run without any plan, any financing, nothing. So that's how we started. But I think a lot of documentaries starts this way.
Okay. Well, maybe you had a late start at the movement and activism, but your efforts will last for generations to come, right? And as we all share, and I want to say this to our audience, if you happen to be Metropolitan Community College personnel, staff, faculty, or student, you have access into the future for the video through our library's perpetual screening license. So check with the Metro Libraries and you'll be able to connect and watch, and you can share while you're watching with someone else. But it's out there and we need the message to continue.
Thank you.
So Mitchie, how about your family members? I know the silence that you described in that beautiful discovery towards the end of the documentary of the valid reasons that your mother was protecting you, possibly. Have you had any comments from your family related to producing the video?
Great question. Thank you. First of all, I come from a very medical family, right? My grandfather was surgeon, my father was surgeon, and I have 3 brothers, younger. They all are doctors. And actually, I was a little bit concerned about how my brothers may respond. Well, first of all, my both parents are deceased, right? So they are not in the picture. And I have one particular conservative brother who is actually lives in Hiroshima, practice, like a physician. I was a little concerned about him, but all of my brothers were quietly very grateful. And they were very pleased to know some of the story because my brothers didn't know a lot of it. And I feel like they have really approved my acting like this in the United States. So I feel blessed. Thank you. Yeah.
And along with that, do you hear from any other Hiroshima survivors or Nagasaki survivors?
Yes. I am a part of this group called Youth Arts New York, Hibakusha Stories, right? The one that bringing Hibakusha to high schools and in New York and talk about their experience. And so that program stopped about, let's see, 2015, because first generation survivors are getting very old, and traveling to New York, it has gotten very, how do you call it, tougher. But I still continue to have a correspondence with Hibakshas, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and some are in Tokyo and so on. And I showed this film theatrically just about a year ago in Japan. Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, 15 cities. And I was able to meet all the Hibakusha survival people in all different cities. It was unfortunate because the COVID was running after our theatrical release. So a lot of them could not make it, but that was a very satisfying, rewarding experience when the one survival person came up to me and she thanked me. Michi, thank you so much for making this film. I was very, very moved by that.
Well, I think it's safe for me to give you a major, huge thank you from our entire audience. Everybody can nod or throw up your responses there. More questions coming in. Have there been an increase in the number of requests for interviews with Setsuko in light of the current rhetoric around nuclear weapons?
Yes. She lives in Toronto. And sometimes, because she's not very good with computers and so on, she doesn't even have cell phone. Well, she may be upset that I'm revealing this part of her, but so sometimes I help her to coordinate the, let's say, media inquiry so that she can, she can say yes or no. Because of the current situation with Ukraine and Russia, she is getting a lot of media interview requests. And also in this coming June, there will be the first conference in Vienna about the new treaty to TPNW, Treaty to Prohibit Nuclear Wars. So that meeting has been postponed for like a year because of the COVID. And now it's finally happening. She decided not to go because of the health concern and so on, but she's really getting a lot of inquiries again now because of this meeting. Yes.
All right, we have one of our audience members says, hello, Ms. Takeuchi. I lived in Sasebo, Sasebo, Japan.
Yes, yes.
For 3 years and visited the Nagasaki Peace Park several times. How do you think we can bring the real consequences of nuclear war to younger generations? And can you also speak more to the American censorship that occurred and how that led to a quieting of these stories?
Thank you. Okay, excellent question. Okay, so in order reaching out to the younger generation to share what has happened in that particular part of the world, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I think one of the major goals about this film is to share this with younger people. And we did create the teacher's guidebook, which is available to you now. So you can certainly use that for your classroom. And I was a little bit concerned about the shorter attention span of the younger people, because people are saying that they're get bored very quickly after 10 minutes or whatever. But I have shown this film at the high school in New York, as well as college in New York in the classroom situation. Oh my goodness, all the students were so engaged. They certainly were not doing any of the texting or anything during that time. And I was very moved. And after that, their responses and questions were so right on, and they were so engaged, and I again felt very rewarded. So I would really like this movie to be a tool to open a discussion among young people. As far as the media censorship, that's a very tough question. I really didn't know there was such media censorship until 10 years ago, when I got more involved in the movement. I think that is the consequence of the war. And because of the media censorship in Japan too, not only a lot of people outside of Hiroshima, Nagasaki didn't know much about nuclear weapons either. And I find it's a rather complicated subject. I need to learn more about this, yes.
Okay. I have posted in the chat that we'll get more information to audience members after the event about the teacher's guide and possibly provide some copies of that. So everybody watch for that email that comes from me. It was very interesting at the point where the US ambassador, who is no longer the US ambassador, correct, was outside protesting while the rest of the world was negotiating. There was a statement that was said, and I believe that was a part of our previous presidential administration. Any comments on that, Mitchie?
Thank you. Well, she even misspoke a little bit, right? When she was asked the question. And I think I was there at the UN, and the assembly hall became very empty because a lot of people were going to that press conference. And actually that was aired on the national news. It was so interesting because none of the accomplishment, let's say, about this treaty, TPNW, when it was adopted at the UN, there was no media coverage whatsoever in the United States. And even Setsuko said in the film, where is the New York Times? Where is Washington Post? These are all so-called liberal media. They don't even cover. So I really understand that the history about nuclear weapon has been quite complex in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I will say that for everybody here in Omaha, Douglas County, let's keep in mind that May 10th, that's next week, right? We have an election, and it doesn't matter what level you're voting at, all of this, your choices will eventually impact these kind of decisions, right? So we're not telling you how to vote. We just want you to vote. Exercise that right that you have to help our country make decisions that are best for us and the world together. So, okay, I'm looking over questions now. It was any mother, and others I'm sure, but I think mothers especially, could really sense that concern that Setsuko had when she became pregnant, and suddenly, had an additional concern that you shouldn't have to have, of what will happen with the children that I'm carrying, right? So I want to say that I really appreciate how you brought that out, because I'm pretty sure that the mothers out there could sense that concern. I will say to everybody, I was at a meeting over the weekend. Warren Buffett, who many people are familiar with, has an annual stockholders conference, right? And he allows people to ask questions. And someone in the audience wanted to know what Berkshire Hathaway has done to protect itself against nuclear war. Like, how are you going to protect our stocks and our holding? And it was just really interesting to, I mean, Buffett and his partner, Mr. Charlie Munger, were very realistic. Like, I think that you have more to worry about if there's a nuclear war than your the stock market, right? But one thing that they shared was that Einstein once said, "We don't know what weapons will be used in World War III, but he said World War IV, we will be fighting with sticks and stones." Just to give you an idea of the, you know, the damage to our world and, you know, what we'd be going back to. I thought that was a really important part of history for us to think about. So overall, Mitchie, what would you say that what would be the one thing you would want people to learn from Setsuko, having watched her life and gotten to know her so closely?
But there are many things that I like to share with you. Setsuko, she is a very interesting individual, a little unusual in some ways. She's 90 years old and she's come from Japan, married to this wonderful, she was married to wonderful Canadian man who became her lifelong partner. She's a very happy and fully engaged human being. And knowing her really opened my eyes about how important it is for us to remember what happened to our own families. And she said, when I said to her that, wow, I wish I had spoken to my mother and asked her what she went through during that time of atomic bomb and so on, and I never did. I was too busy living my life in New York City. Yay, freedom, you know. So I really had a lot of regret in the past 10 years. And she said, Mitchie, it really happens to everyone. And don't look back, but just do something you can do now locally. And that really comforted me. And also another thing, I really learned when I saw that nuclear weapon is such a huge topic. How am I going to talk about this to people who haven't really experienced? It's overwhelming to me. Then I learned from her, it's just very simple. Humanity and nuclear weapons simply cannot coexist. It's such a huge issue, right? How are we going to solve it? And she is very patient, optimistic. One thing about activists, they are so patient. They're like, they are very optimistic. It's gonna get done. It may take 50 years, but still it's gonna get done. We're gonna be doing it. They are very optimistic. So I really learned that about mindset to be crucial.
Thank you so much. Well, I want to thank our audience so much for being with us. And Mitchie, if you have any other comments you'd like to share, I'll let that be our last comment for the day. Anything else you want the audience to know?
Well, I am so happy to be here today. And this is like my dream come true. And I really mean it because I have felt showing the film, you know, so far, I almost felt, even though it was so well accepted and, you know, people thanked me and all kinds of stuff, but I almost felt like I'm preaching to my own choir. It's almost like self-satisfaction. today is my first time to share the story with people who I never met. I even never been to Omaha or Nebraska, very important part of the United States, and also very important military history as well, right? And there are so many different discussions that all of us can be having about that history and past, but this facing with you and sharing the story and I feel your compassion, empathy, it means so much to me. And I think this is just the beginning how we all work together, right? And I would really like if you could spread the word about this film in your states or, wherever your family come from. I would really love that. And I'd like to be a part of the discussion through Zoom as much as I can. So thank you for this amazing opportunity. And thank you so much for Barbara for preparing so thoroughly. And it's been a wonderful experience.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much. We appreciate, it's in May. It's been rainy and a little gloomy here. As much as we needed the rain, I think yesterday got really soggy. We have people that are willing to give their time. And I'm just so thankful for this audience. And again, it's just an extreme honor to have you with us, Mitchie. And if you will share our most sincere respect and regards with Setsuko. We feel like we know her even though she's not here with us today. All right, so
yes, thank you.
Again, thank you everybody for being here, and we appreciate your participation all year long. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.